link, but I just sent out another one with the correct one. And if you got the first one, you got it right. And if you went to our website, you got it right. And this will also be recorded. So you'll get it right eventually, okay? For now, let me introduce, to those of you who don't know, Erl McLaughlin of Sunrise Iron and Alder Slope. And we were just talking earlier, he claims some Colorado heritage before that Alder Slope business. And got here actually about the same time I did. But he can tell you more about that. Earl's going to talk a little bit about how he got here, how he started the Sunrise Iron business, and then we'll get on to his latest confabulations. Okay? Take it away, Erl McLaughlin.
Well, I want to thank you, the Josephi Center, for hosting this event. That's a good place to start. And so I moved to Enterprise, Oregon after I graduated from college at Western State College in Gunnison, Colorado, with degrees in economics and business administration. That was back in 1974. And the last 40 years, I've been trying to teach myself how to farm. And that's an ongoing project, teaching country bumpkins how to farm. So anyway, so winters are kind of long here in Wallowa County, but not like in Colorado. So winters are still lengthy. So I know I don't have any animals. All my 600 acres is all cropland, and so there's nothing to do in winter. So in 1983, I just started collecting old iron. Started with tractors, and I've got about 40 steel wheel tractors, and most of them are kind of painted up and in running condition. And then I've tried to widen my horizons over the last 40 years, and I've got a place out there on Sunrise Road. It's called Sunrise Iron LLC. That I put all my restored stuff. And so the Josephi Center come up with an idea to figure out what people did during COVID-19. So I started making these steampunks, and 6 months ago, I didn't know what steampunk was.
So wait a second. So you started this during the lockdown?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is perfect for this show we've got up now, folks, is called Lockdown. So it's what you did, and Erl took it literally.
Yeah, lockdown. He was like caged lions around here. So anyway, so I've been collecting this brass for, well, 35 or 40 years, and I just kind of thought, well, why don't I get some old brass fittings and sandblast my brass up at Stangl Industries and polish it, and then try to find these bases, which is a really difficult thing because they're old farm-related things. They've got the part numbers and maybe the case eagles and the IHC logos on them for my bases, and then started incorporating my brass on the different fixtures. This in here, for example, it's plumb for air, and if you got a big enough air compressor, you can hook it up, and I've got valves here so that you can run your steam whistles. But this particular one here, it takes a lot of air to run this. I've got one steam whistle that's about that high, and you'd have to have a D6 cap motor to run enough air to run it. But this little one over here, you just barely crack that, and it'll blow your ears out.
If we had a bicycle pump here, we could blow it.
Blow it, yeah. Well, and I found out this little seam here, this little crack here in the steel that I thought was all one piece, is where that air comes out there, and you can feel it, and it hits that sharp surface is what causes a whistle. And I just found that out a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Anyway, so then.
So that's the first one you did?
Yes. And so I plumbed it for air, and then I have Enterprise Electric order these Edison bulbs for decorative purposes. And so, and then this particular one here, I'd like to draw a point to the configurations on the needles here. Them are really unique needles. You don't hardly ever find them anyplace. Them gauges are off of big steam boilers, and they're probably at least 100 years old. And I polish the brass, and that was a difficult one to put together because you got to get your wiring up through there. And Enterprise Electric is pretty patient with me, and so because you had to bring your wiring up through here, and then you had to bring it up into there, and then you had to tee off and bring it over here. Well, we had that thing apart about 4 times because one leg wasn't working as far as electricity goes. Uh-huh. So you take it all back apart, and then you have to repaint it in one thing and another.
So what are those gauges? They're all water pressure gauges?
Yeah, this big one here is steam pressure for a huge boiler. These other gauges are just gauges that I don't know what they're specifically made for to do, but there's either the gauge, the needles themselves are really unique. They're works of art. Of course, modern day gauges don't have that kind of character.
So can you date those gauges by the dial?
Yeah, kind of. They're at least, this in here is at least 100 years old, and probably this in here is probably in that category. Maybe that's about 80. Well, yeah, they're 80 or 100 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, and then I made this one over here, and it's a little more plain Jane, and it would be a little easier to reproduce. These two over here are kind of the sacred cow or Calcutta. If anybody wanted to reproduce them, it'd be difficult because the brass is extremely hard to find.
Uh-huh.
Well, and it's I usually put these together, and it takes me 3 or 4 days to put one of them together and tweak it around, because there's a million combinations here, a lot of pipe fittings. And the learning curve is a little steep here, because when you go to paint this, well, you just don't take this whole thing apart, or you'll never get it back to the way it was. So I just take it off of sections, and sometimes you still don't get it right the way you had it. So you just take it off and paint it in sections. And I leave them a little loose in the joint, so that if you want to, you can move things around if you want to, change the configuration. There's a little engineering going on here, because when you leave them a little loose in the joint, and then when you paint them and you put them together, then all of a sudden you might have to reconfigure it because it isn't balanced. And if your base is not big enough, then it can be a little tippy. So I've had to re-engineer several of them, because you get some way over here. You thought it was going to be here, and it turns out over here. Then it gets unstable. So then you have to, when you thought you had final design down, then you have to re-engineer and get some weight over there, and that can then you can probably start all over on your engineering ability when you've only got 3 brain cells like me. Yeah.
So do you start with the parts and then go to building it, or do you start with the design and then find the parts?
Yeah, you can kind of do it any way you want to. There's no master plan here. Yeah, you just kind of start to cobbling things together with duct tape and glue and gum pucky. Yeah. So anyway, and then I brought this one up here. It's kind of hot off the press, and it's nice and dainty.
The hot pink one.
The hot pink one. The hot pink. Yeah, and it's some of these are oilers, and some of them are grease cups, and compression releases, and primer cups, and a really unique solid brass valve that I found in Lewiston or someplace. Anyway, and it's nice and dainty.
It's dainty.
Yeah, it's dainty.
Now, is that one wired for air or water or nothing?
No, it isn't.
It's not.
I won't put Edison bulbs on all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so I've got about 25 or 30 of these. Most of them are still down at Enterprise Electric to try to get them wired. And of course, this is really a busy season.
Oh, you've got another 20 sitting down there waiting to be wired of these things that you've been.
Well, yeah, 20, at least 20.
Oh, be over the heck.
Yeah, and a whole bunch out at Sunrise Iron. I got 8 or 10 out there. They got some of them got bulbs in them, and some of them are that high. If you on a big heavy duty stand. And
okay.
And I've got some that weigh 200 pounds.
Oh, here, I thought you were getting away from that. That's why you got rid of tractors. You didn't have to crawl around on the ground and lift heavy things.
Yeah, well, you got to still lift heavy things. I'm working on one right now that'll weigh 200. Oh. Yeah, it's got a steam pressure gauge on it about that big around, okay. And it's on what I call it's on a stand like the Eiffel Tower in Paris. It's sloped in, and it's about that high off the ground, and it's got the faded blue paint on it. And of course, you wouldn't want to repaint that. And I worked on that a little bit this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, so that gives you a brief summation of my steampunk farm fantasy art. So
steampunk. Say that again.
Steampunk. Most people did. I didn't know what steampunk was 45 days ago, so I call it farm fantasy art.
Farm fantasy art.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, what does steampunk mean?
Well, it means kind of the industrial revolution stuff, like repurposing old fittings and old gauges, and yeah, that's the official definition.
That's an official definition,
according to Merriam-Webster.
Okay.
Mark, my son-in-law.
So do you know Do you know anybody in the country that's doing similar stuff?
Yeah, I kind of got my idea from a Sugar Time Bakery. You go down there and look at their chandeliers.
Oh.
They're really neat because they're about 6 bulbs off there, and they're all flat, but they're coming off there at weird angles, and it's a big chandelier type deal.
Okay.
You look at them down there, Rich. That's where, and then we use pipe fittings with just regular bulbs on them, and I thought there's some way to repurpose a lot of pipe, and of course it takes a lot of.
Have you made any chandeliers?
Oh yeah, I made chandeliers of a different configuration. I make wine tasting tables and chandeliers, but Nyko Manufacturing will allow this. Got the $800,000 laser cuts on my other type of artwork that I've been selling down at the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center for 25 years. I make coffee tables and chandeliers and wine tasting tables and mantel pieces and all that out of highly technical, out of pickled and oiled mild steel. And there's lines in there that Nyko can cut in that other artwork that I'm producing that you can't even see daylight through.
And where is that?
Well, I sell them down at my place at Sunrise Iron LLC, or down at the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center in their gift shop out of Baker City on the way to Halfway.
Okay.
They've been selling stuff for me for 25 years.
Is that right?
Yeah. So.
See, and we just thought you were up there growing wheat and barley, and all this time you're
picking rocks and
picking rocks
and killing weeds.
Yeah, you got to figure out some way to use all those rocks then.
Yeah, make the Great Wall of China or something. Yeah. So anyway, so there gives you a brief description of what I'm into there. I might talk a little bit about Sunrise Iron.
Sure. Tell us about Sunrise Iron. You're not open right now.
Yes, I am. I'm open every day of the year, even on leap year when you're open only a day's only a quarter of a day long.
So people just have to get in touch with you.
Yeah, get in touch with me, call me, rattle my cage, and we'll do a tour. In fact, I'm scheduled for some tours this afternoon and tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Yeah, and during the virus, I've had lots of tours. My tourship is up.
You just take a few people at a time then?
Well, it kind of depends. There was a couple of times this fall during COVID that I had 30 people.
Oh, really?
At one time.
You better watch it. We'll send the police after you.
Yeah, the black helicopters looking for
no more than 25, huh?
Marijuana grow. My wife, she planted some poppies about 10 years ago, and then poppies disappeared. Well, 2 years ago, then poppies showed up, and they'll come through ground sterile. And in the last 2 years, people have commented, is this Sunrise Iron or is this an opium farm? It kind of looks like an opium farm. Next year, it will be an opium farm because they'll come through ground sterile and they multiply like rabbits.
So you never know what next year's occupation is, huh, Earl?
Probably not, but I'm trying to change from picking rocks and setting pipe into something a little more intelligent.
Well, I don't know if it's more intelligent, but
it's fun.
But it's fun. I like that farm fantasy.
Yeah.
So, do you have a website?
Yes, I do.
And it's sunriseiron.com?
.com. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and that's got your contact, so they can get on that and they can call you.
It shows my artwork, and none of this is on here because this is brand new.
Yeah.
But my other artwork and highlights things that go on at Sunrise Iron.
Okay.
I canceled my 2020 show because of the virus.
Yeah.
So next year I'm kind of on schedule to have my 26th annual open house at Sunrise Iron.
Okay.
It'll be around, I haven't looked at the calendar, but it'll be that first weekend in August,
okay.
barring a spike in the COVID virus.
Yeah, making sure that we're all right. But until then, all these people that are fleeing the city and getting out here to get some fresh air. Yeah. They can get fresh air on Alder Slope and see some old tractors.
Yeah.
How many break it down for us a little bit. So how many steam tractors you have?
I got 4. I got one late model. It was about a 1913. My oldest steam engine is an 1893, and it was before they had gearing to the rear wheel. So it's portable steam. You had to pull 3 of my steam engines around with teams of horses.
Oh, okay.
So I got 4 steam engines, and I got 5 hard rubber tire trucks.
So no, wait. So they were combines then threshers that you pulled around with horses?
No, the steam engine itself, because they didn't know how to gear. They didn't know how to harness that steam to the rear wheels.
So it could be used, that steam engine could be used for anything.
Well, yeah, you had to have steam traction before they would move.
So
So
what would they have been used for before?
Well, strictly belt power.
For what?
Just belt power, because they wouldn't move.
Oh, belt power. So
Yeah.
you could run anything you wanted. You could run your flour mill or whatever.
The real early ones were just strictly belt power because they didn't have no gearing to harness that steam to the rear wheels.
Okay.
But the later model, like my one steam engine, that weighs 40,000, it'll move itself. So I got them steam engines, and then I got 5 hard rubber tire trucks that were all made before 1918,
Okay.
and about 35 or 40 steel wheel tractors, and lots of lithographs, and 10 or 12 old wooden washing machines. I've tried to widen my horizons so when gals come there, sometimes the gals have more fun than the guys because I've got 8 or 10 old wooden washing machines and old butter churns and sewing machines.
Sewing machines.
Yeah, really nice treadle sewing machines that got good graphics on it.
Okay.
Well, and so I went as far as Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and I went to the Canadian Sponsored Ag Museum at West Tascan. That's 50 miles south of Edmonton to buy stuff for Sunrise Iron. Yeah, I'm willing to go the distance to try to find some stuff.
Yeah, I know you've scoured the Palouse pretty well.
Yeah, I have, and I've got some really valuable stuff out of the Palouse, and I got 2 or 3 things that I'm working on in the Palouse right now. But sometimes I negotiate on this stuff for 25 years, a quarter of a century. It's taken me to get some of this stuff. You got to be really patient, and you can't say the wrong thing.
Because that old farmer doesn't know whether he wants to turn loose of it.
Yeah, well, the family heirloom.
It's family heirloom.
And the intrinsic value.
And he's hoping that his grandson will take an interest.
Yeah.
And he has to wait to see that grandson's interested in computers and doesn't give a darn about.
His grandson is usually sitting here texting with both thumbs on his smartphone, and he's talking old crusty iron. So that probably wanes that enthusiasm really quick.
But it might take 25 years to figure that out.
Probably, or more. Yeah.
So what's your favorite find of any of this stuff you've dug up?
Well, the most valuable one, and I'm saying, people say, what's your favorite thing? Well, the favorite one, you've got to be really in love with it, because you won't put 500 hours into something by the old school method, the hard method, and now you're in love with that. So, but the most valuable thing I've got a 1915 model 1020 3-wheel case that there's only 2 of them left in existence.
Oh, wow.
And the resident expert says it's highly unlikely number 3. We might, but it's a little doubtful. So I don't deserve to own that, but I'm providing it as good a home as I possibly can.
So Earl, what year did gas-powered tractors come on the scene?
Yeah, that's a little bit of a subjective thing. Case built their first tractor. There was a full-blooded Case in 1912, and so I've got a 1915. So that kind of goes back to the beginning of time. But that tractor definition is a little loosey, because what is the Merriam-Webster's definition of a tractor? And so you can come back to 1901, and does that kind of,
because you had something that could pull something else.
Yeah, and so does that fit the definition of a tractor? So that's a kind of a subjective thing. I kind of like open the windows, find out who made the first tractor.
Really?
Yeah.
But Case was one of the first
steam
ones
engines. They made Case, J.I. Case made his first steam engine in 1869.
Okay.
And I'll share something with people that I didn't know this either. What does J.I. Case stand for?
Don't know.
So, well, his first name is Jerome, but his middle initial will kind of blow you away. It's Increase.
It's what?
Increase. Jerome Increase Case.
Increase Case, and that's what he was set out to do, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah, he made his first steam engine in 1869, and he made more steam engines than anybody else.
Okay.
I'm talking a lot of research here.
Yeah. So then, so this first steam, that 1915 Case is a steam tractor?
No, it's gas powered.
It's gas powered.
Yeah.
So there were some steam tractors before then?
Yeah, 1869.
There was a rolling tractor? You said steam engines at first, they could just run a belt. They didn't have them geared up.
1869, they was portable steam.
Okay.
But around the turn of the century, then they got so that they could make steam traction out of them and they would pull themselves.
Oh, I see.
So a roundabout way, probably you can kind of figure around 1900 is when they first made the first gas-powered tractor, give or take a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And Case was early in that too?
Well, they come along, first full-blooded 100% Case was made in 1912.
Okay.
But there's
So the names we remember for tractors were McCormick and.
Yeah, William McCormick and Cyrus, Cyrus McCormick and William Deering.
Okay.
Were early developers, and Hart Parr, that's two guys' last names, and they was engineering students at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, and they was way ahead of their time. They produced a successful mass-produced tractor in 1901 or 1902.
Wow.
And they become lifetime friends, and they coined the word tractor, and they also got credited with producing the most successful mass-produced tractor.
Okay.
And so, and they become lifetime friends, and they're buried in the same cemetery in Charles City, Iowa. And I've got a 1224 Hart Parr. It's 100% Hart Parr, and then I've got a 1836 that's full-blooded Hart Parr. But then in 1939, Alder bought Hart Parr out, and Alder was afraid to take the Hart Parr off of there. They left that Hart Parr on in little letters because Hart Parr was really successful, because them engineers were before their time. Yeah.
So didn't McCormick also make a whole bunch of implements, right?
Yeah, some of them made horse-drawn implements.
So did McCormick come from implements to tractors, or they went the other way?
Yeah, from implements into tractors, because they was making horse-drawn implements back, beginning around the Civil War.
Okay. Now you have some old implements up there too, right?
Yeah, I've got one place out here east of Joseph that there's no motorized stuff. Mr. Al Alsberger has been generous enough to let me put some restored stuff out there. There's no motorized stuff there. It's 40 by 80, and I got the aisleways tightened down in there. And there's implements in there that go back to the Civil War.
Really?
And they're fully restored. I'm just waiting to try to get another edition on Sunrise Iron.
You got to build another building up there, huh?
Yeah, I was going to do it this year, but the COVID virus really messed up people's schedules.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe 2020 or 21, I can put on a building up there so I can get my stuff kind of around.
So then you'll have your implements as well as your tractors and your.
Well, I've already got a bunch of implements out there. My building currently is 40 by 220, and I'm hanging stuff out of the ceiling. So the good Lord just blessed me with a lot of iron. I tell people, whatever you do, don't tell me you got a vacant building, or I'll be there at the behind crack of dawn, and by noon it'll be full of scrap iron. You won't be able to find your building. So anyway, yeah.
So this old iron and brass is worth money just by itself too now, huh?
Yeah, it is. Well, yeah, and the more interest you show in something, like some of these old farmers, they kind of think maybe there's more value there than what I think. He's kind of showing a lot of interest in this stuff. So
yeah,
anyway.
He thought he was going to get a couple bucks a pound for it down at the recycle.
Down at Sutton, Salvage, and Lewis, and they build a lot of stuff down up there.
Do you have guys down there that keep their eye out for you?
Yeah. So I got.
You got eyes all over the country then.
Well, that's the reason I have open houses, and I invite people, because every person that comes to Sunrise Iron, I send them home with some of my cards with my maps and all my contact information on them, because I'm dead serious about having to have help. I've been to every place I thought there was, but you have to go where no other iron collectors ever thought about to find anything this day and age. So when people come to Sunrise Iron, I send them home with cards, and then I got more sets of eyes looking out for me for some more iron. So
it's Earl's army of
scavengers.
Scavengers out there across the West, huh? Okay.
Anyway.
Should we ask anybody out there in the Zoom audience if they've got a question?
Yeah, I better be pretty simple, because I'm kind of brain dead most of the time.
Anybody have a question for Earl there? No? Ralph, you don't have any questions or corrections? He went to sleep, Earl.
I see.
Did we put him to sleep?
I don't know. Did we? Probably. We had to listen to a monotone.
No, I'm here. I'm just trying to unmute it.
Oh, he's trying to unmute. Okay, Ralph, shoot. Give Earl something.
What are you doing with all those steam pumps, Earl? Are you just filling your house with them, or are you just
I recognize that voice. That's Ralph Swinehart.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
What was your question, Ralph?
What is he doing with all those steampunks? Is he just collecting them in his house, or is he selling them on the art market? Did you hear that?
They're in my house, and there are about 15 or 20 of them, Ralph, are still down at Enterprise Electric to get them wired with Edison bulbs. And I've got some of them up here at the Josephi Center, and I've got them kind of strung all over planet Earth.
He's got a couple of these that are here for sale, Ralph. You get up here with your checkbook and we'll sell you one, okay?
There's a couple here. They're not the Sacred Cow of Calcutta. I might dangle some folding green out in front of them. I might be lured into something.
Hey, Rich, this is Cheryl. Mike Midlow asked, what's your favorite rig?
Favorite what? Rig?
What's your favorite rig? Like machine? Actually,
Well,
it's Christy. Okay.
I touched base with Rich a little bit. You got to absolutely be in love with to put 500 hours in, and that's hard, nasty work. So if you're not in love with that, you won't be able to force yourself to put the 500 hours in it. Because I bought a few things over the years, and if you ever fall out of love, you can't force yourself to go out there and do that ugly stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So what, of that 500 hours, what are the most hours? Just sandblasting or loosening things up or what?
You can't sandblast. You can kind of sandblast my horse-drawn stuff, but you can't sandblast anything that's got bearings in, because you get that material in there and you'll never get it out.
So how do you clean it up?
No, every method from A to Z of the old school method, by
Elbow grease?
Elbow grease.
Yeah.
You know, put your brain in neutral and then start scraping. So that's the most intense thing, is you got to get something clean. Well, and I've taken to steam cleaners with 5,000 or 6,000 PSI, and you will not take that stuff off. Because it's on there 100 years. And
now, do you have a steam cleaner yourself up there?
No, I don't, but I can borrow Stangles, but it don't do you a whole lot of good unless it's a little loose. Even 5,000 PSI won't take that stuff off. So you got to just dig it off. So there's where you got to start. You got to start by not getting a clean enough paint, but you got to get it clean enough so you can start working on it. And then you can start taking one problem at a time, or it'll overwhelm you, because everything you look at on them old tractors or them old trucks, everything you look at needs attention. So you got to confront one problem at a time. And if it takes you 2 days or 2 months or 2 years, then you can move on to the next one. And so you got to have a Boeing machine. I hired a Boeing machinist to make me lots of parts. I've had parts made in Champaign, Illinois, and Detroit, Michigan, and Chicago, Illinois, for parts for my tractors that were missing gears and specialized stuff. And so then you can kind of, after you get them together, and then you can start thinking about trying to get them to run. And the day that you go there, that you don't have your patience mode on, you better not touch anything that day, or it'll be all broke. And then you take it to Weaver Machine or Carl Bobbitt or Leps Welding or Stangle, and they say, "Why did you break this? We can't fix it." So you got to be really patient. If you should be out making a living, you should lay all your antiques down, and you better go make a living, and then come back when you don't have anything on your agenda to keep from making the restoration project even harder.
So that grain farming was a give. Because if you'd have had cows, you'd have had to work all year round.
Winters are long, and so
winters are long for grain farmers.
And I could listen to my neighbors say, "I think you got a cow over here that's prolapsed, or you need to call a vet if your bulls are out." So I've got basically November, December, January, February, March to work on stuff in the winter. So,
how many years again? When did you start?
Well, I started in '83.
In '83,
I was 33 years old when I started.
So you started farming here when?
I moved here after I graduated from college in about 1974.
And then your folks had the farm up on the slope.
Yeah, they bought it in '72.
Okay.
Yeah, with a big pink house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you kind of worked with them for a while and then branched off that?
Yeah, well, yeah. So my dad, he kind of retired in 1975 or 6.
Oh.
So then I started.
So you were running the show pretty early then.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to teach myself how to farm. After 45 years, I'm letting the younger generation, that new boy on the block, take over where I left off. And farming is like everything else; it's getting more and more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't wake up some spring day and say, "Oh, it's so dry enough to farm and get out the team anymore." You got to get your seed and fertilizer bought in off season. or when it comes time to farm, there won't be any seed or fertilizer for you to start. So it's complicated.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we live in a complex world, and it's getting more complex.
Uh-huh.
And I guess human nature kind of likes to make it complex because we're getting there real quick.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, complexity.
So back in the day, Earl, you and I rode that ski tow up
Yeah, Ferguson Ridge
at Ferguson Ridge.
for a lot of years.
So you had to, and you were bringing your kids up out there too.
Yeah, Tyson
And
and
then-
Tanya, I taught them how to ski and snowboard, and they're
Yeah.
still going up there.
Okay.
And they're bringing their grandkids up there now. I
Okay.
got 3 grandkids.
Okay.
Uh,
So you had to sneak in a little bit of ski time,
yeah,
but it was good. It was only open on the weekends. So then you had Monday through Friday in
to
your shop.
scrape grease, fix broken things. Yeah, yeah.
So are there any other collectors around here that are working on stuff?
Dennis Henderson down at Wallowa collects stuff that's on pneumatic tires. Stuff is made in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s.
Okay.
I'm pretty small fish out there in that pond. Back there, I've got 2 cardiologist friends that live in the state of Florida, and each one of them has got in excess of 300 tractors in a climate-controlled environment. One's a cardiologist, and the other is an anesthesiologist. Well, and
Wow.
back in a real farm stage, boy, there's some big-time collectors.
Huh.
So I'm kind of a pretty small fish in the pond.
Uh-huh.
But as far, the farther you get away from the point of origin, the less collecting there is available. And so on the West Coast here, there's not
Yeah.
a whole lot.
No, farming was more a Midwest and a
Yeah, Midwest, Southern California, San Joaquin Valley,
Yeah.
kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell people you have to want to farm pretty bad to come on the side of Mount Everest and farm around the mud holes and the rocks and the tree stumps.
So Ralph didn't ask it, but you know Ralph's an old Ford guy.
Yeah, he
So
is.
when did Henry start making tractors?
Let me think about that. I would guess, and I've done a lot of research. I would guess about 1920.
Okay.
He was a little late getting into the game,
Uh-huh.
but when Henry Ford showed up, why he breathed fire on people because he made a tractor for about $1,000 less than what you could buy a light tractor from John Deere or McCormick Deering.
Oh.
And so in 1923 or 24, he had 75% of the tractor sales.
Is that right?
Yeah,
That quickly?
that quickly because he made a little disposable tractor.
Uh-huh.
And I've got one of each. I've got a Detroit Fortune in my collection that I found here in Enterprise, Oregon, and I got a tractor that was imported in here out of Cork, Ireland. That's a Fortune,
Okay.
and there's lots of differences. So when sales started to fall, why he moved his production of the tractors to Cork, Ireland, and I've got one of each in my collection.
So now I'm told, and I've been telling people, I hope I'm right.
You're
that-
right.
that most of the farming in America was still done with animals until World War II.
Yeah, that's kind of a subjective thing.
Uh,
Yeah, because
I found some stats for it one time. I mean, there was still a lot of horses, and I've asked people here, there were a lot of horses and mules
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And there were some tractors out there,
Yeah.
but then you had to be mechanical and everything. But after the war, people came back, and then a lot of guys didn't want to come on the farm, so you didn't have to help you set up
you
a.
quit raising big families.
So then a lot of those people went to the city. So then you needed a little more machine help.
Yeah, well, yeah, it used to be, there was the people involved in agriculture was 80 or 90% of the population involved in agriculture.
Right.
Now it's 1 or 2%.
One or
And
two,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, and so you have to have mechanization when you're going to take over all these little farms.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's just that whole industry is really consolidated.
And of course, the other thing, there was a market after the war. Ford and these other guys were busy building Jeeps and tanks,
Yeah,
and they had all this capacity.
yeah,
So you got to push. Also, you got some advertising
yeah.
and a push for it.
Back in the heydays when the tractors were first, what would you say, released? Why there was 280 or 300 tractor manufacturers here in the United States, but a lot of them didn't last for more than 1 year.
Okay.
Because of the intense competition and one thing and another, so they started dropping off pretty fast.
Well, in the same way with cars, there were a
Yeah,
lot of car
car
manufacturers at
manufacturers.
first too, and then they consolidated into 4 or 5 companies.
They wanted to get in on the ground floor, and so it started weeding the weak sisters out really early in that whole process. was. Yeah. So.
And the same thing happened with computers. How many guys were trying to build computers in their garages?
Yeah.
And then old Allen and, and Apple, they got her done.
Mr. Gates. Yeah. And among a few others.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, so, the other thing about this is not only is it, is the technology, but look at that. I'll bet you your old high school history teacher would have never thought that Earl would end up knowing all this stuff about the Civil War and
I see.
and the mechanization of agriculture and the use of steam and all the other stuff.
Yeah, well, people come by my place and they look at this old stuff and they kind of feel sorry for them people. But that's they didn't know any better. In 25 or 50 years from now, people will be saying the same things about us in 2020. They think them poor people back there, but we don't know any better, so we're pretty satisfied. But this industrial revolution and the changes makes life a little easier, and people will be feeling sorry for us, but we're completely happy because we don't. This is all we know, right? With the technology that we got, but that technology's changing faster and faster every year, isn't it?
Yeah. Joe Dawson tells me he can irrigate his field from Hawaii on his smartphone.
On his smartphone.
Yeah.
And people 50 years ago wouldn't even even have any idea what you're even talking about.
No.
Well, they'll be talking about us in 25 years from now or less.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the old stuff we might be wanting to use some old stuff here.
Well, when we're only about 3 days supply of food on hand, if something goes wrong, you might have to teach yourself how to be responsible, because we're only 2 or 3 generations away from being responsible for our own food, clothes, and shelter. But so it's happened pretty fast. And if that apple cart turned upside down, we might have to start raising your own food again.
Well, Earl, a lot of people are.
Yeah, we've got COVID virus has got them going. Hasn't it?
Even before that, we've got a Saturday market here. We've got little farmers working stuff and growing
plots.
I like
organic.
Pardon?
Organics.
Yeah. But Beth came in with backyard gardens, and she turned a bunch of vacant lots in Joseph into little farm plots.
And so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know that we can feed 8 billion people that way, but
no. But we can feed. A lot more of us will be able to feed ourselves, and I think that's.
And it might lengthen the life. We might not be invaded with the cancer, and who knows.
We might be
live to be as old as Methuselah, and that's about 969 years.
Yeah, and we might, taking care of this old equipment and walking to and from the barn, and
it's good exercise on the old body.
You got to work out, and you look like you're in pretty good shape for.
Yeah, I was being as old as a dinosaur. I was born back in the dark ages.
Hey, I got you by a few years, Earl.
Yeah, a few, but you got good quality of life, and you got good, and your brain cells still work. My brain cells don't work anymore.
Oh, come on. They've been working pretty hard. So, Cheryl, do we have any other questions out there?
No, but if you could kind of focus on the one piece that's for sale and tell us how much it is, and that would be my question. And Christmas is coming up, everybody that's listening, and Earl would like to make some extra change so he can purchase more parts to make more things.
I think this one over here is the one that I designated that's for sale, because it's kind of replaceable, and it's not the sacred Calcutta, but to show you my mentality, I don't know what I priced that at. We'll have to talk to Rich or Megan or some of the higher ups to know what I even priced.
Well, they don't trust me with money, Earl.
Well, they don't trust me with money either.
No, they don't. Okay.
So anyway, I don't know, but this right here would be for sale. We'll just have to see. I don't know if it was advertised.
What about hot pink? Is that going to be for sale?
It might be if you dangle enough for folding green out.
Okay.
I mean,
no, these say not for sale on it.
Sale. I see it's right here. If you
his brother-in-law's here, and he's got that making all that money at that gallery.
He tells me what the Mark tells me what the markup is on this, and he says your markup's not high enough. And I said, well, I'm not making my living from this, so just need to sell it at kind of at a cost. So I see that somebody's written down. So it's got a price of $420 on it.
$420.
And
Okay.
then the artistic name is irrigation because it's got a lot of irrigation valves
Okay.
and one thing and another on it.
But it's not set. You're not set to run any water in it.
No.
You'd put that bulb out probably if you did, wouldn't
Yeah,
you?
you put the bulb out, and I didn't use Teflon tape on the joints, so you'd have the geyser. You'd have
Okay.
Old Faithful water
Okay.
running all over in your $1 million house. So let's don't put any water in that.
And if you'd rather have something that hung rather than set,
Call me.
then you'll have to call her.
Yeah, I've got a chandelier that's on a wagon wheel that Nikon manufactured, and it's got 4 complete sets of Willow Mountains and 4 Oregon trails. And there's a lot of math went into that on
Okay.
an old original wagon wheel
Okay.
chandelier.
Okay.
You couldn't hang it in my house because you'd pull the ceiling down. But at the Josephi Center, it would.
We could hang it here.
You
huh?
could hang it and it wouldn't pull the roof down.
Okay. Well,
So, I'm
we'll
sure-
have to. Cheryl's on this thing, so Cheryl, just keep it in mind that one of these days we'll load up some of that stuff from Earl's big shop there
I see.
and put it in here and hang a chandelier.
I tease people, all you have to do is do a midnight raid on me and I'll never miss it. Got too much junk. Never miss it.
That's
Not
a
a-
great idea. We could put a chandelier in the art shop.
There we could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So it's heat treated, and it's circular, of course. And
How big's that wheel?
About 3 foot in diameter. It'll weigh 250, 300 pounds.
I don't know.
You're hanging off these beams.
We could hang it off these beams, Cheryl. I don't know if we could hang it in the art shop.
So anyway, and you can pick out your type of bulbs on it because if you had 99 or 100 different types of bulbs, you'd find somebody that what bulb don't you have, and that's the bulbs that they want. So you can pick out your bulbs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, it's been a real pleasure, Earl.
Yeah.
And tell
Let's
people
go.
out there. Oh, go ahead.
Rich, can I tell one story on Earl?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to know where he lives. You have to know where he lives. But all the time he doesn't spend farming and scraping iron, he spends picking rock.
Mm.
He's been picking rock for years, and one of his neighbors was watching him, and he said, "Earl, if you keep picking rocks like that, pretty soon you're going to be looking up at Enterprise."
Yeah, that's right. The uphill enterprise. I'm getting there slowly. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Well, that reminds me of the time when I first got here. You were probably about the time you got here. I was on Alder Slope, and I had some sheep, and I grew corn because I like corn, and I was going to feed those sheep the fodder, and I was going to chop them up. So I looked in a magazine and I geared up this thing with an old reel mower and everything, and of course it wasn't strong enough to I could really not chop up the corn, But one day old Wayne Cook came by and he said, "What are you doing with this stuff?" Because I had the corn shocked up, And I said, "Well, I'm going to feed it to the sheep." And he said, "Well, Rich," he said, "there was an old boy down the road here, and he had some cows, and he had them just about broke to eat sawdust, and they up and died on it."
Eat sawdust. Huh?
Anyway, the old timers have good stories.
Yeah, they do.
And you're now an old timer, Earl.
Yeah, I've been an old timer for several years around here.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Thank you all very much
Yeah.
for coming today. And come tonight, check at 5:30. Pearl Marsh is going to join us to talk about Maxville. Okay. And that Zoom link is on our website. And I sent out a corrected one today on that one too.
And I'd like to thank you, the board of directors and the Josephi Center one more time for hosting this event. It's been an honor and a privilege for me.
And and I like the fact that that Cheryl's idea of having a lockdown exhibit got you unlocked into all this stuff.
Got me motivated to do something. Huh?
Okay.
Okay. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. About that.
I don't know.
Yeah, I